We are back, episode 19 of the Feel for the Game podcast. We're going to go ahead and get into our new segment that we've been doing. We're here live right now watching the release of the college football playoff rankings. Pretty excited about it. We're going to go over what our top 12s kind of look like real quick. I think they're just about to drop it. We are watching it live. This is not pre recorded, so we're going to try to divert to talking about the rankings as they come out. But really quickly, just giving y'all an overview of what my top 12 looks like. Um, Obviously, I've got Ohio State, Indiana, A&M in the top three, followed by Georgia, and I have Ole Miss at five. A lot of people don't have them at five, but I'm not really valuing Texas Tech as a team that probably deserves to be in the top five until they win their conference. So if they win their conference, I'll probably end up moving them up, just like the College Football Playoff Committee is going to. Then I've got Texas Tech following Ole Miss, Oregon. I've got Notre Dame at eight, OU nine, Bama 10, BYU 11, and then my cutoff is where Vanderbilt is at 12. I got Vanderbilt a little bit higher than most people. I'm pretty high on the Commodores, but we'll see if they can pull off a win against Tennessee. Got Miami just line out there at 13, and then Utah around that 14 range.
All right, so I have the same trio, 1 through 3, of Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M. Then I also have Georgia and Ole Miss at 4 and 5, Texas Tech at 6, Oregon at 7, Oklahoma at 8, Bama at number 9, BYU at 10, Vandy at 12, and then Vandy at 11, and then Miami at 12, and then right behind Miami at 13, right past that cutoff line is Notre Dame.
Yeah, so me and you differ pretty drastically on Notre Dame right now. We were talking about this before the podcast. The only reason I have Notre Dame where I have them is because I genuinely think that they would beat OU in Alabama, which I have at 9 and 10. I definitely think they would beat BYU. And all of this would be assuming they also have home field advantage where I have them seated at 8. So they would be playing OU in South Bend. I like Notre Dame right now with how hot they are. I think that OU's been playing good football, which, I mean, you got to give them credit for the four ranked wins that they've got. But I feel like they're a little inflated just given the fact that this team hasn't produced a legitimate offensive outing in their most of their big wins. That just says a lot about the defense. So I'm not overshadowing the fact that they have probably the best defense in college football. But you just, when you play top five teams in the playoffs, when it really comes down to it, that team is not going to be able to win, I don't think. So, and I kind of felt that way in the off season. I just figured that the offense would be a little bit bigger of a deal there. So that's where we did for the most. But it looks like we just had the first five teams released. We got Arizona finally in the rankings at 25, Tulane at 24, Georgia Tech drops down to 23, Pittsburgh moving up to 22 above Georgia Tech with that big win, and then that looks like SMU at 21. I think they just changed the screen.
Yeah, they switched the screen pretty fast. I'm pretty sure that was SMU.
We'll get back to that. That was the 21st team, but they're highlighting Tulane right now. I think they're still the highest ranked group of five team. They don't have anybody else over them. So yeah, it is SMU jumping up from unranked to number 21. And I think that's a pretty big catch up play right there. They should have had SMU in the rankings last week. They also should have had Arizona in the rankings. And I mean, if we're being honest, Georgia Tech was bound to fall at some point. All right, the next five just dropped. So we got Arizona State rounding out at 20, Tennessee up to 19 with a big win against Florida in Gainesville, breaking the streak. I think we've been alive, and Tennessee has never won a game in Gainesville. So that was a big one. They just switched the screen on us again, but they're highlighting USC's resume right now. They're coming in at number 17. So, I mean, despite the loss to Oregon, I don't think the committee really devalued them too much after that. I thought they played well.
I think they had Virginia and yeah, they had Virginia and Texas at 18 and then 16 for Texas.
Yeah, USC just fallen two spots. That's really not that bad. I know they're still out of the playoff race, but I still like that team a lot. I think they'll probably end up in one of the top bowl games that's left over. Michigan up to 15. I think both of us have Michigan at 15 as well.
Yep.
They go up three spots. So that's a good move up for Michigan, setting up a really big game against Ohio State. Five in a row. Could be crazy. That was a chaos scenario we were talking about is if Michigan were to beat Ohio State, they would be an at-large team to make the playoff. There's no way you can keep them out.
You couldn't do
They
it.
win and they're in, which is crazy because they don't have to play in the Big Ten championship game.
Unless Oregon were to lose to Washington, then they would.
Yeah,
Which
I don't
it's
see
on the road. It could happen. I don't think it does,
Wisconsin.
but
I mean, not Wisconsin.
you can never rule it out when it's at
Washington's a
Washington.
really good team at home, so that's something to keep watch of. If chalk does not fly, we might see something like that happen. Same thing with the Iron Ball. That's something we're looking at.
You think Utah gets penalized for playing? No, never mind. Vanderbilt's at 14. I
I
was
don't
gonna
like
say
that.
possibly Utah down there because they're
I don't like that.
interesting
I
performance
think
against
that
Kansas
Vanderbilt should
State.
be ranked over Utah right now.
I have Vanderbilt at 11.
I'm just so impressed with how they're playing, man. I mean, their whole roster compared to 2 years ago, I know the transfer portal makes a huge impact, but their whole roster looks so much different, like top to bottom at every position group. They don't look like the same program. You put a different logo on that helmet, you wouldn't know it's Vanderbilt. And then they got Utah dropping one spot to 13. I think that their 450 plus yards rushing allowed to Kansas State warranted them going down.
Yeah, I mean, I very squarely had Vanderbilt ranked above them.
Yeah, I did not like that. It was a fun game, definitely a really good game, but not what you want to see from a team that's trying to make the playoffs as an at-large two-loss team. You got Miami
Miami
at
at
12.
12. Yeah, they keep creeping up.
They're forcing this. They really want Miami to make it so they don't have to deal with the conundrum of the head-to-head with Notre Dame. So I've been seeing that coming for the past couple of weeks now. They were like what 17 or 18 when the first rankings released, and they've done nothing but blow out teams with
They've
losing
beaten
records.
nobody and moved up like 5 spots.
And I'm telling you right now, the college football playoff selection committee is trying to inflate this team. And they may have a chance to play competitively in the playoffs, so it wouldn't be a terrible thing. But if a team like Vanderbilt gets snubbed because they're trying to inflate Miami, that's going to piss me off. I love Vanderbilt, and I think if they beat Tennessee, they should be in. BYU at 11, I think we both concur with that. I've got BYU sitting there at 11 right now,
That's
right above
just
the
setting
College.
up for the committee to screw them over.
Unfortunately, with the teams that I can tell they want to put in, BYU, if they cannot beat Texas Tech or at least make it really close, is going to get the shaft. So I fully anticipate that being the case. The committee's setting up a lot of things that are very obvious right now. The Group of Five candidate that they want to win and be in, and then they're trying to pre-fire Miami getting in at large if they can't get into the ACC championship game. I fully see that being the case because there's still a scenario Miami gets in the ACC championship. It's not
I
low.
saw it today and it was absolute chaos. There's like less than 1% chance.
I don't think it was that low. It was only like two teams losing.
No, it was like 4 upsets that were huge.
I must have missed
It was like
something.
Virginia, SMU, Pitt all had to lose or something, and then
I think it
maybe
was just
somebody else.
SMU and Pitt plays Miami.
Okay, so Bama is 10, Notre Dame's 9. That's not a change from last week.
Yeah, and I've got OU sandwiched between the two of those. I'm surprised that they have OU over Notre Dame. I guess they just think that OU's defensive unit would shut down Notre Dame. Maybe they're not thinking of it that way. It's probably resume like we were
It's
talking about
resume.
earlier.
The resume difference is pretty stark.
Because
If you look at the
I
results,
always
it's
think of it as like when it gets really tight with teams, like who would I probably think would be better on neutral site? And that's not the point of the college football playoff rankings or like the AP poll. That's not how they rank teams for what we know. Um, but when I look at teams, I'm just not really sure. I try to envision the teams matching up in my head on a neutral site field, and it definitely brings some clarity to who deserves to be where they're at. Because resumes can be deceiving at certain points. So Oklahoma comes in at 8, not surprising. I think the rest is pretty much chalk. They're probably going to start moving up Texas Tech as we go. Oregon gets a big win. I bet they probably jump Ole Miss as well. I can see Ole Miss probably being down at 7. That would not surprise me at all. I think that would line them up with a game against either BYU or Alabama.
so these Miami championship spots or scenarios are very interesting. There's like 8 different potential ways they could get in, but they all require at least like 4 different results.
Really, I don't know what
Yeah.
I was looking at then. Whatever I was looking at said they had like a 25% chance to make it. So yeah, Ole
Ole Miss
Miss.
drops to 7.
I don't like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that's a little bit ridiculous, and obviously there's bias incorporated into this. But right before the Egg Bowl, we didn't even play a game, and you're gonna move us down just because Oregon had their one quality win of the season
That's
at home.
ridiculous.
I don't like that. So they're pre-firing that for sure. Not
Oregon
surprised.
has freaking nothing on their resume besides that USC win. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, if USC had lost to Iowa, they one would have been ranked. Two, they would now be a four-loss team, and Oregon wouldn't have gotten inflated. So they set that up freaking pre-firing Iowa to be ranked too high. So I keep saying pre-firing. If nobody knows what that means, it basically means they're setting up the inevitable for what they want to happen slowly. So they're assuming a scenario or outcome is going to happen, and they're playing into that and setting it up to make it not look as drastic when it happens. So, Texas Tech at 5, not a surprise. They're probably favored to win the Big 12 at this point with the matchup against BYU to go 12-1. Georgia at 4, and then probably looking chalked up with
Yeah, the rest of
A&M,
this is getting very
Indiana State.
predictable.
I think my takeaway is for sure with where they've got Oklahoma, as long as they hang on against LSU, they're not moving down. They're creeping up Miami. They're trying to force Tulane to be the Group of Five champion that gets in. They want them to be ranked at the end of the season. That sets up for, yeah, Alabama coming to Oxford. Gosh, that's crazy. That would be nuts. That's assuming they can even win the Iron Bowl. So there's a lot of stuff that has not been determined yet that to shake this up a ton. I mean, you've got A&M traveling to Austin. That game's going to be really good, at least from what I can tell. I think it's going to be really interesting. Oregon Miami would be a really interesting game too, but assuming that let's say BYU beats Texas Tech, and what are you going to bump Texas Tech out of the playoffs because they lost their
They
conference
both get
championship?
in.
I think they both get in. In that scenario, did they even have an ACC champion getting in? I guess they.
They had Miami again, which extremely low chance that happens. It's probably going to be SMU and Virginia is
And
the
that's
most
what we
likely
talked
scenario.
about.
As long as both of those teams win, it's them two.
They had the placeholder of Miami being the highest ranked ACC team, but they're most likely not going to even make the conference championship, so they would have to make it as an at-large team. So that's confusing. I don't know why they would have to put them there. I think that's kind of stupid. I think they should take whoever they would favor to be the conference champion. So whatever the outcome is to produce a conference champion, they need to have the two teams that are most likely to make it and pick a winner and put them in.
Where'd they have Virginia ranked? Like
I think
18
like
or 19?
16.
So it'd default be them if you're going by teams that actually are going to be in the title game.
So we're expecting an SMU Virginia ACC championship game. I think SMU is going to win that matchup if they play.
I think SMU at this moment is the best team in the ACC.
I mean, they got the win against Miami, so you can't even argue that Miami's the better team unless you want to be like the college football playoff selection committee and argue that head to head doesn't matter. So that's what they're trying to get away from. See, like they've creeped Miami all the way up to 2 spots behind Notre Dame. I think that's I think that's crazy that they've gotten away with this up to this point to be able to move Notre Dame right to a spot where Miami can reach them or get within shooting distance. Because Miami doesn't have to pass Notre Dame; they just have to make it into the playoffs, and then they're not going to get scrutinized for it. So as long as Miami makes it in, then they're not going to get the scrutiny they deserve.
The committee is cheering so hard for Pittsburgh to beat Miami this weekend.
I mean, I would assume they probably are.
And I think it actually happens. I've talked about that for a few weeks now, but I'm still riding with that.
When we talked about it, I figured they had a chance to split games with Georgia Tech and Miami. I did not see them winning both. What I think plays into Pittsburgh's favor is the fact that Miami can't run the ball. So
And
I
it's
feel pretty
at
good about that.
Pittsburgh. It's gonna be cold. It might actually be snowing at this game.
I saw it was gonna be like 32 degrees.
I'm gonna check and see if it's gonna be snowing at this one. Because if it's snowing at this one, Miami ain't winning
Yeah, tell
in the
me
freaking
Carson Beck's
snow.
not throwing 4 interceptions in a snow game. That sounds like chalk. If it's a snow game, dude, I'm betting the over on Carson Beck interceptions.
All right, we just fumbled the mic, but
Yeah, I just
I
hit
got it
a
back. We're all right.
WWE flying knee into the table holding our mic.
So it's actually not gonna be snowing at this game. The snow comes in the next day, but it is gonna be the high in Pittsburgh is like 30 degrees.
Okay, so I think that still plays a huge factor considering Miami has played like 75% of their games in Florida this year. You got to take that into account. Like they haven't played in below probably 65 degrees of weather this year.
No, they played Virginia Tech this weekend, but
It was like 60 degrees.
it was warm this weekend.
Yeah, it
So,
wasn't bad. So,
and then when they went to SMU, it was still warm in Dallas. I'm pretty sure it was probably in the 70s.
yeah, that's one to watch. There's so many upsets, and we're going to get into these games here in a little bit, but I mean, there's not a game that any of these teams in the playoffs are playing in outside of maybe Notre Dame that there's not a legitimate chance for these teams to lose and drop out. I think if Ole Miss loses the Egg Bowl, I don't care how close it is. I really think they might drop us out. With how tight it is right now at the bottom, they're pre-firing us moving down. So assuming we lose, they've already moved us down to 7. We probably should be number 5. But since they've moved us down 1 spot each week, we haven't even lost the game. What happens when we lose a game? Are they going to drop us out of the top 25? I mean, at this rate, I don't want to know what's going to happen if we lose the Egg Bowl. So we will find out because we will be there. But that's going to wrap up our top 25 college football playoff reaction. This week was interesting. I think we got a lot to talk about once we get into these rivalry game matchups. It's time for our Week 13 recap. We're going to start with Georgia Tech versus Pittsburgh. Final score was 42 to 28. My key player for this game was Bryce Lovelace, linebacker for Pittsburgh. He had probably the biggest play in the game. This was, I wouldn't call it a turning point because Pitt had already jumped out to a massive lead at this point. Georgia Tech was making a comeback and had the ball inside the 5 yard line. Bryce Lovelace intercepts Haynes King and takes it 100 yards to the house. Flips the script, puts them up over a touchdown on Georgia Tech, getting them back behind the chains again in this game. I really felt like Georgia Tech, if they'd scored there, would have had a real chance to win. And with how they've been playing, I probably wouldn't have been betting on it, with the mid-game bet. I didn't really feel good about how they looked to pull that game out regardless. Pittsburgh looked like the better team from the jump. This play just proved that despite the fact that Georgia Tech was trying to claw back in, it just wasn't going to be enough. That play was crazy. Um, One of the biggest statistics was seeing Haynes King throw 2 interceptions in this game. That's very uncharacteristic. And I mean, he had to play hero ball in this game to give him a chance because of how down bad they were early from the defense and the offense getting off to a slow start. When Haynes King has to play hero ball, oftentimes he plays really well. Um, we saw in a losing effort a couple weeks ago. Okay, that's not right. This
Yeah,
is the first.
they lost to NC State. They have 2 losses now.
Yeah, okay. I was losing my mind. Sorry, we can cut that. We saw in a losing effort to NC State, Haynes King had a really solid game, but he turned the ball over a little bit. So, I mean, he went for 1 million yards in that game, but despite the fact that he played out of his mind, the defense just couldn't keep up and give him a chance. It was the same script here. I mean, they ran the ball okay. Haynes King had to take over, and it just wasn't enough. I thought that Mason Heisel played really well. He had another solid game. I thought he was gonna have to throw for like a bajillion yards in this to have a chance because I was factoring in the hero ball scenario from Haynes King, like exactly how it happened. But Heisel didn't even have to really throw for that much. I mean, he played very consistently and he made some really good throws, but he didn't have to go for like 350 or 400 yards to win this game. So I was impressed. I think that Pitt is in a position to, with the dominoes falling their way, possibly make the ACC championship game. And I mean, just like SMU, if they were to win with 3 losses, there's no telling what could happen with them and maybe being in or out of the playoffs. So thought this was an interesting game.
Yeah, I mean Georgia Tech's been on some thin ice for a while. You saw it crack against NC State, nearly cracking against Boston College, and then big cracks this week. I think they pretty much have no chance to make the ACC championship, unfortunately. So their playoff hopes are pretty much gone. And then with Georgia on deck this weekend, it's going to be tough. But you can't get down 28-0 and have a good chance to come back, really. But I mean, they did have a chance and then threw the pick six, but you just can't dig a hole like that and come back most of the
Yeah,
time.
and put it
It's
all
really
on one
hard.
player, you know. Like it'd be one thing if your Texas A&M and your team chemistry and your culture allow for you to, as a team, make a mounted comeback. Georgia Tech's not capable of doing that. Brent Key can't be the whole team, and Haynes King can't be the whole team, unfortunately for this football team. So yeah, like you said, it's been the ice has been cracking for several weeks. You go all the way back to the Wake Forest game, and we thought Wake Forest was a
The
bad
ice
football
did
team then.
crack, and then the refs were like, "Nah."
Yeah, the refs said no, we're good. We'll throw some more water on the ice, let it freeze over, and we'll give them a couple more games. But sure enough, they fell through the ice finally. I think it had cracked just enough after this game. They fell right through. So I still think Georgia Tech's a solid football team. They did go on the under for my win total this season. I had them at 10-2 regular season. So I mean, I was tracking early. Preseason predictions usually don't end up playing into your favor very often. So this team just was kind of an early season juggernaut, beating some teams that were overinflated. Started to see the ice start to crack later through the season, and they've fallen through now. So
What do you think would happen though if they were to beat Georgia? Do you think they would have any at-large chance?
no, I think that you look at their losses and their close games. I factor in the Wake Forest loss. If they're a 3 loss team, and you look at the Wake Forest loss, it's kind or not the loss, the Wake Forest win. It should have been a loss. it to me becomes a loss at that point. If you're a one-loss team and you barely somehow get that win with the help of the refs, I probably won't hold it against you as much. But since you've already proven that inferior teams can beat you and good teams can beat you, it wasn't an outlier, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So I don't give them grace there, and they're in my eyes a four-loss team
and they
this
are
year.
down at 23 now, so that's pretty far away to come back.
Yeah, and the strength of their wins wouldn't be very good either. So I think their best win would probably be like Duke or Clemson at that point.
Yeah,
So
their best one is not very flashy.
I don't love that. Overall, I think that talking about the winner here, Pittsburgh has new life. Even after getting blown out by Notre Dame just a week and a half ago, um, they're right back in it. Even though the College Football Playoff Selection Committee would hate to see that coming, a three-loss ACC champion might be their worst nightmare right
Their
now.
best win is actually Wake.
Gosh, that's unbelievable. But that's where we're at with ACC now. So to be expected. Tennessee going to Gainesville and beating Florida. Not surprised by this one. Final score 31-11. Tennessee outright dominated this football game for the first time since we've been alive, Landon. I think it was 2003 the last time that Tennessee went into Gainesville and won this football game, much less
Wild.
won by how much they won by. I try to go with a key player, play, and statistic in most games to kind of just derive how the game ended the way it did. My key player for this game was Tennessee's defense. The key play was the first three quarters from Tennessee, and the key stat was Tennessee is better than Florida. I don't really know what else to say about this football game. Florida has chosen to show up in a handful of games this year and not win them. If you subtract the Texas game where they somehow were able to win that one, Florida showed up with the 70% of their football team outings in this game that were pitiful, and they laid another egg here. Uh, I was not surprised by them losing this game. I kind of wasn't surprised that they got blown out, but at the same
Mike just tumbled for the second time. It's
let's
podcast.
cut that because low key I botched part of that. We can just do it over again. I'll try to make it quicker this time.
Okay.
All right, cut. Tennessee goes into Gainesville and dominates Florida 31-11. That was the final score, and for the first time since 2003, Tennessee beats Florida in Gainesville. We were not alive the last time Tennessee won this football game in Gainesville. So breaking a huge losing streak for the Vols, and to be honest with you, I mean I did see the win coming for Tennessee. I just didn't see it in that kind of fashion. Um, Florida just doing absolutely nothing offensively. I try to do a key player, play, and key stat for most of these recap games. My keys for this week were really interesting. So my key player was Tennessee's defense. The key play was the first three quarters, and the key stat was Tennessee is better than Florida football right now. I don't see that changing for a little while. I think Tennessee's got a huge leg up on Florida as a program right now. I think Josh Heupel's got the reins of Tennessee where he wants them. They just need to recruit at a high level, string together a good season next year, and come back firing on all cylinders. Even with the win against Vanderbilt coming up, if they're able to pull that off, it's just another 9-3 season for Tennessee. Florida is in the wash right now. Complete reset. Whether they get Lane Kiffin or not, there's going to be a rebuild next year. The transfer portal gives them a chance, but I don't feel good about what they've got on the schedule next year in being competitive. So we'll see what happens there. But this game was a complete wash in general for Florida. There was not much going on, and evident of the key player play and stat of this game, Florida was not present on the football field in Gainesville. They could have sent out the cheerleading squad, and they could have probably scored a touchdown and matched Florida's offensive output in this game. So really not impressive stuff from Florida after putting Ole Miss down to the wire at Oxford the previous week. That game just felt like it was probably going to be close, but this one, I mean, they never had a chance. So the bad Florida showed up this week.
The score really does this game no justice. I mean, you see 31-11 and think, oh, that wasn't too bad. And this game was 31 to nothing at halftime. So Tennessee really took their foot off the gas in the second half. But yeah, Florida made Tennessee's defense look like the 85 Bears, which is just embarrassing because that defensive unit from Tennessee is not that good.
They're not solid.
DJ Lagway didn't do anything. Tennessee ran the ball for 250 yards. Man, it was just an absolute murder. Florida just super bipolar in these games. Show up one week, just nowhere to be found the next week. And Tennessee, big opportunity to finish off the season good with Vanderbilt next week.
Yeah, I'm pumped about that game. That's got some big implications, which we'll talk about once we get to the preview for that game later down the road. But yeah, it's not good for Florida right now. I'm a football coach right now that is looking to upgrade and move to a premier program. I don't know that Florida's one of those programs I'd be looking at. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, if it was still the SEC East right now and they were in it, I'd feel even worse because they were always just coming up short in the East. Now that it's spread out and you've got 9 conference games, if anything, you know what? I probably feel worse. Yeah, I don't feel great with Florida having to play 9 conference games next year. It's going to be tough sledding for the Gators. Oregon takes on USC in a huge Big Ten matchup. Final score was 42-27 in Eugene. Oregon gets a statement win, pretty much for the first time all season. If you disregard the Iowa game on the road, this is their biggest home win of the season. So I thought that Kenyon Sadiq had a really great coming out party after coming back from injury, totaling 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played incredible. That 28 yard snag that he had to send them up 2 touchdowns was, in my opinion, probably what turned the tables in Oregon's favor late in this game.
This game really came down to what most Big Ten games do, and that's running the football. USC only 50 yards on the ground, whereas Oregon had 180. That's a big difference there. And then USC's defense, the thing with them since Lincoln Riley came has been just that they're just not great. Then they have been improved this year, but not good this week, giving up 42. Tough to win in the Big Ten, giving up that many points. But yeah, Oregon with a much needed good win for their resume.
Apparently, it was such a big win to beat USC, who is a current 3-loss team, at home that they got to bump ahead of Ole Miss, who has a, in my opinion, far superior record. So Ole Miss loses the bye week to Lane Kiffin drama, unfortunately, and affects their seeding in the playoffs. So Oregon finally gets a legitimate ranked win, and that seems to be enough to start moving them up and inching them up in the rankings. I still like Oregon, and I think they probably are a better football team than Ole Miss right now. And with the drama, I probably would take Oregon, but I just don't like the way that the college football playoff selection committee moved about that. It's pretty interesting that they decided to do that. But Oregon looks good. Nothing worth playing well. Kenyon Sadiq's healthy. They need to get their receivers healthy. Decorian Moore was a stud early season for them. He's got to be healthy. Heard rumblings of Evan Stewart coming back. If they get both those guys back for the playoffs, they will be dangerous. So I'm looking forward to seeing a fully healthy Oregon team make the playoffs. If chaos ensues, there's a chance they make the Big Ten championship. So who knows what happens there? Would love to see something like that happen. Oregon's been really good. Big win for them. Oklahoma gets a statement win against Missouri at home, 17-6. I think we were all over this one, Landon. We both had this being a low-scoring affair. Oklahoma getting a gritty win, but for the most part, I mean they controlled the game, and that's exactly what happened. Um, Oklahoma had one really big play, 87-yard drag route taken to the house by Isaiah Sategna. I figured that it take at least one or two really big explosive plays for Oklahoma to be in a comfortable position in this game. John Mateer did virtually nothing outside of run sweeps and draws and complete this drag route for a touchdown pass. Isaiah Centegna has been the big play threat all season for Oklahoma, and it doesn't feel like there's been anybody else. John Mateer hasn't been ripping off big runs. He's been getting just enough on the ground to keep the chains moving. And that's the only reason this offense can do anything but go 3-0. So I'm not looking forward to watching them play a legitimate defense. I thought Missouri's defense had a decent outing, but their offense, even with Bo Preview, which we did not factor into this game, we were expecting him to be out. But he was announced later in the week to be healthy and be playing in this game. It didn't even make much of a difference. I mean, Missouri had their chances, and yes, they went for it on fourth down a couple times, missed some field goals, but I think regardless, like Oklahoma's finding a way to win these games without offense. I mean, maybe a key play in every game offensively that gives them a chance, but defense is the story right now with this team. And after what Ole Miss did to them in Norman, I thought that the script was going to have to change for them to be a playoff team. I looked at that outcome, and I told myself that if Oklahoma wants to make the playoffs, they're going to have to find prime John Mateer. They haven't found that yet. I mean, post hand surgery, he's played as a shell of himself. The Michigan game seems to be an outlier. So, unfortunately for Oklahoma, I don't see them winning a game without offense in the playoffs unless they end up getting a really good seeding in the first round. Right now, they're matching up against Notre Dame and South Bend. I don't see them winning that football game. So Ahmad Hardy gets boxed in this game too, only getting like 54 rushing yards. I thought that was a key stat. We talked about that. Missouri had to get the run game going, had to find something in the play action game. They didn't start throwing the ball to Kevin Coleman until like the third and fourth quarter, trying to throw up Hail Marys and deep third and longs to save drives. That was pretty much it passing the ball for them.
Yeah, I mean Oklahoma wins their third straight game and kind of this weird defensive game script that they've been going off of. Only 275 yards of offense, but zero turnovers, which is key. They turned over Missouri twice, two interceptions from Pribula, and like you said, Hardy not doing much on the ground, sub 60 yards, and just a nasty 17-6 win. But that's how they want to win.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when they get into playoffs, if they're able to get past LSU, like when you play elite teams, you're not going to be able to win this kind of way.
I think that LSU game is going to be disgusting. I don't particularly love either of these teams, so I will be hate watching that game for sure. Um, Definitely leaning more towards hoping Oklahoma wins that game. But regardless, I think that it'll be a defensive slugout.
What do you think of the odds that Oklahoma shuts LSU out?
I had that game being in favor of LSU scoring zero touchdown. I bet you they'll find a way to get some field goals up
I
or
could see this
maybe a
being like
garbage time
14 to
touchdown.
nothing. That'd be so funny.
I definitely see it being a gross game. I just think that if Oklahoma plays the defense they're playing, they'll find a defensive touchdown or two, especially if Garrett Nussmeier finds his way into this football game. He will get his. And when I say that, I mean Oklahoma is going to get some pick
He will give
sixes.
his turnovers, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, he had the strip sack touchdown against them last year, so definitely could see it happen again. We'll see, though. Cincinnati goes and loses a heartbreaker to BYU at home 26 to 14. This was a tough one for the Bearcats as they really strung together some big wins early in the season. Started off hot. I think they were like 7 or 8 and 1. And back-to-back losses to Utah and BYU in Arizona. That's not where you want to be. So Bearcats season goes down the drain. BYU dominates this game on the ground. LJ Martin has 266 total yards and two touchdowns. He's been the key player for this team all season. Him and Bear Bachmeyer, if they get going, BYU gets going offensively. And that's what ended up happening in this game. His 33-yard touchdown run to go up 26 to 14 ended up icing this one. My biggest takeaway was red zone offense. BYU was a perfect 100%, 4 for 4 in the red zone. Cincinnati, a grueling 1 for 3 in the red zone.
Yeah, that's just another perfect example of BYU playing this almost perfect style of football and getting wins this way. Zero turnovers, and then, like you said, perfect in the red zone. Cincinnati with two turnovers and three missed field goals, which was really key. And also for Cincinnati, just another Satterfield story of starting the year hot and then falling off. They were 7-1, I believe, and now 7-4. Last year, 5-2 to 5-7, but just same kind of thing for them this year.
Yeah, and you hate to see that, but they've already hit the over on their win total, so
They've
not a
still
totally
had a good
disappointing
season.
season. Yeah,
Definitely a step in the right direction.
you can look at some of those wins, and they're definitely, if you looked at preseason expectations, exceeding where they were at. So I still like Brennan Sorsby. He's had a tough run the last couple games, but he's starting to play better late in this game and give them, a couple plays to ignite some fire. But at the end of the day, you shoot yourself in the foot as much as they did, and you could say shoot yourself in the foot. BYU forced a lot of these errors with the kind of defensive style they have, but they did shoot themselves in the foot on this one. And if they maybe did better in the red zone or keep the ball safe, they could have had a chance to win.
Maybe they literally did shoot their kicker in the foot since he missed three field goals.
There's a real chance. I didn't get to watch those kicks, so I don't know how bad the misses were. It could have been close misses. It could have been really bad, but I mean, that's a possibility. Maybe he had some hunting accident and shotgun barrel on the boot. You never know, but unfortunately for them, I think those 9 points played a huge factor in the final score in this game. So BYU gets another win and is setting up a huge conference championship game with a rematch against Texas Tech. Kansas State takes on Utah in what was probably the highest scoring affair of the entire week. I did not see this game playing out this way. I figured that Kansas State was the last team left on their schedule to have a chance to give them a scare, and that is exactly what happened. Kansas State led for a majority of this game. Key player Joe Jackson, running back for Kansas State, who was not the initial starter at the beginning of the season, had 312 total rushing yards and receiving yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. I genuinely cannot believe that Utah was able to pull this game off. They were down multiple scores in the third quarter and somehow found a way to win this game 51-47. It was unreal.
Yeah, there were 764 combined rushing yards in this game.
I thought you were about to say total yards. That's actually unreal.
No, 400 and 472 of those going to Kansas State. Yeah, and it's crazy they lost this game. They were by 10 with like 4 minutes left, but then Utah touchdown, 3 and out, Utah touchdown, and then of course Avery Johnson throws an interception to seal it at the end.
That sounds about right. I mean, Kansas State really just rolled over and gave this one to Utah. I don't know if stamina just got to an all-time low on the sideline for Kansas State and Utah was just built different in the fourth quarter, but I don't know how you put on the clinic that they put on as a team and then just roll over like that in the fourth.
Something else too, these teams were 10 for 10 combined in the red zone.
It's insane. Yeah, and what bothers me the most about this is I thought Utah had a legitimate defense. I thought that was one of the cornerstones
That
of
was
this
the
football
biggest
team.
shock of this game. Like, where did that go? They have all year had a great defense.
And Kansas State has found some offensive outings, yes, but nobody saw that.
They scored 14 against Oklahoma State last week.
Yeah, I mean, they were our optical assault game of the week just 2 weeks ago. Got outgained by Oklahoma State, who's 1-10. And here we are talking about them on what could have been probably the game of the week, as far as watchability is concerned. I would say this is probably the most exciting game I watched, and I didn't get to watch the whole thing. And it was one of those games where like if you looked at the score in the fourth quarter, you easily could have put your phone away and be like,
I did.
yeah, this game's a wrap. Utah's cooked. They're done. Another 9-3 season for Utah. Chalk it up. No, that's not what happened. Kansas State rolls over and loses this one. Absolutely insane. We had to cover this game. It wasn't on our preview from last week, but you just can't watch a game like this and not talk
It
about it.
was just too crazy and great and absurd to leave off.
College football, that's Big 12. You love to see it. Lots of fun. Definitely going to rewatch this one again at some point. Speaking of Oklahoma State and Kansas State, it is time for our optical assault game of the week. Not currently sponsored by LASIK Plus. We proudly have the LSU Tigers for the first time on this segment, which pleases me greatly, taking on Western Kentucky in Death Valley at night. Final score of this football game. Get ready to vomit. 13-10. Pretty sure LSU was favored by like 23 points, and they scored 23 total points between both teams in this game. I know that several people were betting on Western Kentucky to cover in this game. They absolutely did. So let's go ahead and get into the drive chart real quick. First quarter, first drive, Western Kentucky gets the ball, opens up the field goal, takes it into the red zone. Looked like we might have had an interesting game on our hands as far as scoring was concerned. Because the real question was going to be, can Western Kentucky find points against LSU's defense? Because we know, no matter what, LSU's offense is going to lay a dud. And surely enough, following the field goal, we get a 3-and-out from LSU on the opening drive, followed by a punt, and another punt to close out the first quarter. Entering the second quarter with a lead, Western Kentucky gets an interception, turnover on downs on the next drive. So they get the ball all the way down to LSU's 4 yard line. And I was still watching at this point. Tisdale drops a Philly special in the end zone, score a touchdown to get them up 10-0. This might have been one of the easiest catches I've ever seen dropped in my whole life.
Was it the fourth down play or third down play?
It was either second or third down, I think. Yeah, it was second. It was second and goal from the LSU six. Parrish threw a pass to the backup quarterback Tisdale. He was right in the end zone. Like there was no defenders. Easy touchdown. Just drops it. Like my 9-year-old sister would have caught that. It was bad. So they fail to convert their turnover on downs. Guess what? LSU gets the ball back. 8 play, 54 yards. Turnover on downs. Next drive from Western Kentucky. Turnover on downs. LSU scores a touchdown. So they get a methodical drive in with an 11-yard touchdown pass from Michael Van Buren to Trades Green. Who else? The only person they can throw it to in the red zone. And they score the only touchdown of the game from LSU. And it looks like I just did that stupid thing again where ESPN tries to send me and show me the play recap. I don't want to see that. Followed by a 3-and-out and a punt from Western Kentucky. Punt from LSU, 3 plays, 0 yards. 1 play, kneel out, end of half. Score currently would have been 7-3, favoring LSU. Given all the mistakes from Western Kentucky, this game only being 7-3, LSU getting a miracle here. Third quarter opens up with a punt from LSU, followed by another punt, punt, interception, field goal, 10-3. Interception, punt, punt. Fourth quarter is currently 10-3. LSU opens up with another field goal. So 13-3. At this point, you've already turned off your TV because this game is unwatchable. Trust me, it gets worse. -5 yards, 3 plays, punt for Western Kentucky, 3-and-out, punt for LSU, 3-and-out, punt for Western Kentucky, turnover on downs for LSU, turnover on downs for Western Kentucky. LSU gets the ball back with 2.5 minutes left. 71-yard fumble return for a touchdown for Western Kentucky to make it a 3-point game. LSU gets the ball back after an onside attempt and kneels this game out. Final score 13-10. This game was probably one of the worst games I've ever watched. And I'm not even kidding you. I literally fell asleep watching this game. I was praying on LSU's downfall. I really thought that Western Kentucky was going to have a chance to win in the end. Even after selling in the red zone, I just fell asleep in like the second quarter. I just couldn't do it anymore. At this point, with how early I'm waking up, my sleep schedule's cooked. I'm falling asleep at like 8:30 or 9 anyway. It was like 8 o'clock, and I just couldn't keep my eyes open. It was so boring.
Just it's unbelievable how much worse this LSU offense is than last year. I mean, this was like a great offense last year, and just it doesn't make any sense with some of the players they have. It's just so weird. I mean, it's just continued throughout the whole year, gotten no better, probably even gotten worse since Brian Kelly was fired.
Yeah, and I won't blast my friend for this, but I do have a friend who's a diehard LSU fan, and I remember him just glazing this recruiting class and the transfer portal class and saying, "There's no way that this team doesn't have the best offense in the SEC or if in the country,
Oh
or
man,
at least goes 10-2 or 11-1." Here we are. And I had LSU going 8-4, and that was a huge risk to have them going 8-4. They're about to go 7-5. And honestly, if they play a group of five team in their bowl game, they might go 7-6. They could barely beat Western Kentucky at night in Death Valley.
give me USF beating LSU.
Dude, Byron Brown would feast against LSU. Oh my gosh, that would be dream case scenario for me in bowl season. I would take USF all day long. So this far and above was our optical assault game of the week. It wasn't even close. Thanks to LSU for entering the chat on this segment. Really enjoyed this one. This has probably been my favorite one. It's definitely not the worst one, but it's been my favorite so far.
We could have thrown a little bit of shade though at Western Kentucky only getting 150 yards in this game and averaging less than 1 yard per carry though.
Yeah, they did lose this game, so we do have to talk about the loser, and that's how you lose a football game right there.
Oh,
So, I mean, the only unit on this LSU team that's seeming to want to play football is the defensive line and the linebacking core. So, I don't even think that the secondary really had a chance to get tested in this game. Maverick McIver, the stud himself, did not get to play in this one. So, Western Kentucky without their leading passer. It's time. Rivalry week is finally upon us. This is far and above my favorite part of the season, even with the postseason coming up and a lot of exciting matchups getting slated. This is where it all matters the most. You can be 0-11. And if you can beat your rival, you at least salvage something from the season. You've got a lot of games on the slate that we're going to get to where there's a lot of nothing to lose teams playing against teams that have everything to lose. That's rivalry week at its finest, and I'm so pumped about this. We're gonna go ahead and get into our first game. We've got Texas taking on Texas A&M in a renewed SEC rivalry now, which is awesome for the game. Had to have this. So glad it's back. I'm scared for Texas A&M in this game. I feel like they've been just teetering on the fence all season. I mean, given the examples of the Arkansas and South Carolina games alone, A&M has been riding the fence. I think this might be the one that comes to get them. It's a rivalry game. Texas is hot offensively, and I know we've been dogging Arch Manning for not throwing it past the line of scrimmage. He aired it out against Arkansas. I mean, it looked like a team that did whatever they wanted to do offensively. And Arkansas has not been great on defense, granted, but I haven't seen anybody completely air it out over the top against Arkansas like they did. They were finding guys just beating coverages left and right, and Arch was throwing them on a rope. So he looks like he's starting to get gelled in with this offense. The run game is still not really there, but the receivers are stepping up and making big plays. Ryan Wingo is playing some good football. So Texas A&M is gonna have to play their best game of the season here if they really want to win. Being in Austin at night, they're gonna have to play their best ball. If Marcel Reed goes out there and they start getting some pressure on him, he's not going to be able to do what they did against South Carolina and just have a better second half and allow the playmakers around him to carry him. I'm not saying he got carried, but the playmakers around him really stepped up in that game and made some huge plays. If he starts turning the ball over, they're going to stay behind the chain. They've got to be able to dominate on defense in this game and get pressure on Arch. I'm watching Cassius Howell off the edge in this matchup against Texas's very average offensive line. That's got to be the biggest matchup because we know Texas has to throw the ball. They can't run, they have to throw. If they cannot throw and get the ball off quickly, they're in trouble. So that's the biggest matchup for me. Um, we'll see if Marcel Reed can protect the ball, though. But I think there's a lot of things to look at here. And I like Texas. I got them winning 34-31.
So this game last year was Texas 11-0 heading into that game,
I think so.
and A&M was 8-3.
Yeah.
So it's now been flipped this year.
Wait, no. Texas had already lost to Georgia in the regular
That's right.
season.
They were 10-1. Yeah, I was about to say I thought this game was going to be the same as last year but flipped, but no, that's not the case. But I do have Texas winning this game again. They just they own A&M. If you look at the series history, I know they took like 12 years off, but Texas really just owns them. I think it's like 70 something to like 30 something. It's really bad. So I think that plays a big factor. And people will say that that doesn't play a factor in individual rivalry games, but it definitely does. At home, I like them to win this one. A&M has been just on the fence of losing games all year. A lot of close wins. I think it finally breaks here. And I have the Longhorns winning this one 28-27. I think they find enough big plays, probably with like Wingo or something, to get enough points to win this one.
Yeah, and there's something interesting to notice. Texas has started off like the past 4 or 5 games with the same formation. They come out in this gun formation where they throw a swing route to Ryan Wingo.
And it just works every week, seems like.
Even if it doesn't work on the first play, it sets up a pump fake action play where the right side receiver gets past the safety, and they scored on a bomb against Arkansas with that setup. Because they've been watching film, I'm sure Arkansas had, and they'd seen what they had been doing to Mississippi State and to Vanderbilt, and I think they had it work for the most part against Georgia. I think Ryan Wingo like he somehow tripped and didn't get the yards he probably would have gotten. It looked like he had a lot of green grass when I saw it. But they ran that play in like the first drive of the past several games, and they've gotten a lot of success. So Arkansas, for the most part, doesn't allow like too big of a play the first time. Then they hit him with the play fake and torched him. I think A&M's gonna be watching for stuff like that. If they come out in that formation again and they try this, I just can't imagine that A&M falls victim to a huge coverage bust. We'll see. The team has been spotty tackling at times, but they get pressure on the quarterback and they get turnovers. So I know they've been watching film and they'll be ready for that, but we'll see. Texas has been very, very typical with what they've been coming out in the first drive. So See how they prepare for that. A game that has been looming over the schedules of both of these teams the entire season. You could almost say they've been only looking ahead to this game since week one. Ohio State going to Ann Arbor to play Michigan. I know that everyone's had their minds and eyes on this game for 12 weeks. Michigan rolling in with two losses, having a home matchup with 4 game straight wins against Ohio State. It just feels like last year again. At least in my opinion, that's how it feels. Except Michigan's just got one more win added to the streak. I feel like with Justice Haynes being out, you can make the logical argument, well, yeah, Ohio State should be favored by double digits, and they're clearly the best team in the country right now. They should win. But it's not that. It's not that simple. It's not chalk.
And I mean, that's what they were saying last year too, similar stuff. And it was at Ohio State, and they still couldn't win.
Yeah, you just keep walking back the past couple of years. That's just how it's been. Even when Michigan had JJ McCarthy and they won the national championship, everybody was still like, yeah, Ohio State's a better football team. But myself included. Now, I never picked Michigan to win this game. I'm going to change that today. And that is honestly solely because of Landon kind of talked me into this. I probably would have picked Ohio State. I've been wanting to pick Ohio State in this game all season, but it just feels like the same game. I don't feel like much has changed. You've got a freshman quarterback at Ohio State. You've got a freshman quarterback at Michigan. You've got a team that predominantly wants to run the ball, but they're leading rushers out. And you've got another team that has had struggles with health of their main wide receiver core players. I mean, if a couple things lean Michigan's way here in Ann Arbor and they can chew clock, get turnovers, and run the ball, they totally can win. Because Ohio State hasn't been pressured by anybody all season. When I say pressure, I mean like nobody's actually given them a run for their money. You could say Texas did, but they were up 14-0 for like most of that game. Texas got like a third, fourth quarter touchdown to cut it to one score. They dominated them though. And Julian Sayers just at this point, he's just sitting back there with the cleanest pocket in college football, dropping off perfect throws. What's he going to do when that pocket gets murky? I mean, when they start getting guys back there, is he going to be throwing 80% per game? I don't think he's going to do that against Michigan. I think this is going to be a real wake up call for this offense because he's the root. He's the gunslinger of the offense. If he gets stuck with this pass rush all game, trying to figure out how he's going to find open players, I mean, it could get ugly because I mean he hasn't seen it all season. So I mean, it says a lot about how Michigan's going to be game planning for this. If you know that Ohio State's quarterback is a true freshman or redshirt freshman, hasn't seen a legitimate defense pretty much all season, how's he going to react when you send the house at him? When you've got 100,000 people screaming at him on 3rd and 13 at his own 2 yard line, and they're down 7 points in the fourth quarter. What if he gets sacked? What if he doesn't see the blindside coming because he hadn't had a blindside pressure all season? I don't know. That's just how this game's been. I think that Michigan wins this one. I'm taking them 24-17, but not feeling the most confident about it.
Ohio State's been out of the spotlight in college football really since September, and they've played pretty much nobody the past 2 months. I think they come back into the spotlight this week and get beat. Michigan just owns Ryan Day. That's just the reality of the situation right now. 4 straight losses to Michigan for him. I think it ends up being 5, and that's really my entire basis for this pick. I know Michigan doesn't have Haynes this week, but I don't think it matters. I like them to win this one 21-19 and really make the college football playoff race that much more interesting.
Yeah, like we talked about before the podcast, Michigan wins this football game, they're in the playoffs as an at-large team.
And
And
for
that creates
sure,
chaos because unless who's the team they need to lose to make the conference championship?
they need Oregon to lose if Michigan wants to win
At
the conference championship.
Washington.
But if Michigan wins, then Oregon will make it if they win.
Yeah, so that would set up a really interesting scenario for the Big Ten. You could have Oregon beat Indiana in the conference championship with one loss. Indiana has one loss. Ohio State has one loss. And then Michigan has 2 losses with one of the best wins in college football. I think all 4 of them get in.
for sure. I mean, you can't leave Michigan out with getting a win like that.
I can't imagine who they would kick out of the playoffs if that happened. Cannot imagine.
Well, it really hurt BYU's chance, and then Notre Dame's in sketchy territory, and so is Alabama.
Yeah, and Ole Miss could win the Egg Bowl by 3 points and get bumped down. You
And
never
that would
know.
put them in danger territory too, yeah.
With what the playoff committee's doing with them right now, that's a possibility. But I mean, you got the ACC disaster scenarios. I think the ACC definitely doesn't get a team in at that point. No at large, no conference
It'd
champion.
be tough.
They don't get anybody in. I mean, the college football playoff selection committee has to be just praying that Ohio State just takes care of business here.
They just want chalk.
They need Ohio State to win this game and Oregon to lose to Indiana so they can kick Oregon out, or at least put them in as a low seed. That's what they want. The Big Ten getting in 4 teams is their worst nightmare, right behind the ACC chaos. So I'm really pumped about this game. This game feels like if Michigan can win, even if Ohio State goes on and wins the Natty again, like we're just sitting here having the same conversation we've had all this past offseason about Ohio State. It's like, well, yeah, they won the Natty again, but like, why can't you beat your rival? I don't understand. It's going to be such a weird conversation to have. I almost feel like that just seems impossible to have that conversation again. But with what Michigan's been doing, it could just be rinse and repeat. Same thing happens again this year. We'll see, though. What has turned into most likely a very impactful game for the playoffs. We did not see this coming. The Iron Bowl, Auburn at home in first Jordan Hare Stadium against Alabama. I'm pumped about this one. This one to me screams upset more than almost any of the games on the entire slate. And I mean, we just talked about the Michigan game a second ago. That feels like a huge upset potential game, but I didn't even pick Auburn in this game, and I almost feel better about Auburn winning than Michigan. Like, there's just something in me that feels like Auburn really could pull this off. I mean, Ashton Daniels has been playing great football, even if he doesn't play his best. Deuce Knight just had an incredible athletic performance. I know it was against Mercer, but this kid's legit. Whether he's at Auburn next year or he's somewhere else, he is going to be a starter for a college football team next year, and he's going to put up some stupid numbers. So I'm pumped about this one for Auburn. I mean, this team has had absolute just probably the worst possible scenario happen to them since the beginning of the season. Way too many close games. To fire your head coach. The quarterback situation didn't pan out until you fired your head coach. Turns out you had quarterbacks in your quarterback room that probably should have been playing the whole season. So, as an
Some really
Auburn
bad
fan,
screw jobs from the refs as well.
you got the terrible refereeing game with Oklahoma. I mean, we don't even have to get into that, but everybody knows it was bad.
And the Georgia goal line fumble.
So many
Terrible.
things did not go Arkansas, did not go Auburn's way this season. Riding the ship against Arkansas really kind of set the tone that, hey, this team, they've got something left in the tank. And then showing what they've shown down the stretch, that game against Vanderbilt's really stinking good. To go into Nashville and almost beat them with no head coach, I say that DJ Durkin needs to be a head coach. But you lose your head coach, players are probably struggling to commit to the team right now. But you go in there and you almost beat that team on the road that hasn't lost at home all season. That was really impressive. Then you go and you play this past game against Mercer, and it looked early like, oh no, Auburn's gonna have another Auburn game against a non-con team. It's an FCS team putting up 14 against Auburn, and then Deuce Knight goes for a stupid amount of yards on the ground and 6 total touchdowns. This team is so much more explosive now. I don't know how on earth it took the defensive coordinator becoming the interim head coach and getting an offensive-minded head coach out of the building for this to happen, but Auburn's playing good football. Alabama did not peak at the right time. They peaked in the middle of the season, proving that the Florida State loss was probably an outlier, only to come back and drop this past game against Oklahoma. And then the quarterback performance from Ty Simpson this past week was left a lot to be desired. 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions against the FCS team. It's not what you want to see. So I'm genuinely worried for Alabama on this. I mean, I really feel like Auburn could win this game, but Alabama's got to win this to make the playoffs. I'm going to take Alabama because I did have them as my preseason national champion, but if there was a more Iron Bowl esque upset game, it's this one, and this is screaming it. If you want to bet on Auburn to beat Alabama, I don't know what the line is right now, but if they're giving you more than 5.5, I'd probably take Auburn to cover or win outright because those odds are probably way better than they should be.
I'm actually going to check the line before I get into my predictions here. I
I
can't
figure it's
find it
less than
right
a
now.
touchdown. This game being more than a touchdown makes no sense to me.
Let's see. It is 6.5, Bama.
That's just close enough to where I probably would say it's worth betting Auburn to cover. I mean, if Alabama win, I had Alabama winning this game 34 to 31. So in that scenario, Auburn would cover. I think Auburn's going to find points. Alabama's going to have to find a way to run the ball. I mean, Auburn's defense didn't just disappear. There's still the same players on that team. I think they could show up and play the kind of defense they played early in the season. They match that with the offense they're playing right now, they'll win. 1000% they'll win. But the chances of that happening are very low. We haven't gotten both sides of that coin yet this season with them. So we will see. But I think this is shaping up to be the best Iron Bowl in several years.
The line actually opened up at only 3.5.
That's
Yeah, so
crazy.
it's got bet up.
I'm
And
shocked it's moved that much.
it's kind of surprising, but I have Auburn winning this game. I
You've been
actually
on
do.
this
I've
for
been
a
honking
while.
this horn ever since, well, really, even before Bama lost to Oklahoma. But I think this game's going to be absolutely insane. Uh, I think we probably end up seeing Deuce Knight at some point. I think it's just going to be ridiculous stuff all over the place in Jordan Hare at night. I think this is the first Iron Bowl at night in Jordan Hare in like 10 years or something.
Oh
I haven't been
man.
able to see that a lot, but I think there'll be some explosive plays from Auburn. Maybe a key turnover late from Bama, and Auburn finds a way, 31-28, knocks Bama out of the playoff race and gets to a bowl game.
That would be insane. And this is just one of those games that makes me love college football so much. Like, I don't have any stake in this game. Like, sure, I picked Alabama as my preseason national champion, but I'm not a Bama fan. I'm not an Auburn fan, but I love college football. A team with nothing to lose against a team that has everything to lose on rivalry weekend. The team with nothing to lose has it at home at night. I mean, what else is better than ruining your rival's season in your own home stadium when everybody's down on you? That would be awesome. And to get back into the win column, get to 6-6, and then possibly finish the season with a winning record in the postseason. I mean, I think that's a huge victory for Auburn if they can pull that off. Like massive victory. I think at that point you really got to be serious about hiring DJ Durkin as your head coach. As an Ole Miss fan, if we were to lose Lane Kiffin, that would be one of the guys I would immediately look to try and hire as DJ Durkin. This guy is a phenomenal football coach, really great defensive mind. I'd love to see him get a head coaching gig after this season. I think it's very likely. If he finishes out with a win in the Iron Bowl, I'd chalk it up. He's getting a big contract from somebody. So massive game, massive implications. Really excited about that one. I really feel like our podcast has led all the way to this game. Out of all the games in this entire season, this may not be the most important game in college football or anything, but between the two of us and how much we care about our respective teams, the Egg Bowl, the Egg Bowl just means it means so much, man. And just like the Iron Bowl, we have another team that has nothing to lose playing at home against a team that has absolutely everything to lose. There has never been a more Egg Bowl than this Egg Bowl right here. Like, if I could define the Egg Bowl in one sentence, it's disappointment for teams with expectations. Ole Miss has so much expectations right now. So much. Even with all the drama, there's a lot of expectations around that program. To go in and lose to Mississippi State would be the worst possible way to end the season. Like, you could not chalk it up any worse for Ole Miss. Ole Miss loses Lane Kiffin to LSU, their biggest rival other than Mississippi State, and they lose to their biggest in-state rival to end the season and miss out on their probably their best chance to ever make the playoffs and ruin what is most likely going to be their best chance at getting to a 12-win season in program history. You just can't chalk it up any worse for Ole Miss if that were to be the case. But if you win, you get to improve to 11-1 for the first time in school history in regular season and beat your rival. There's a lot on the line here for both teams. I'm stoked that we get to go to this game. We were looking at like 2 or 3 weeks ago, praying for snow at the Egg Bowl. Unfortunately, that is not going to be the case. Maybe one of these days that'll happen, but I'm pumped about this game. It's going to be a little chilly, so definitely going to have to throw on the quarter zip for this one. I've got Ole Miss winning 38-27. It was really funny. Quick sidebar. I was building out our schedule at the office in the spring, and I was blocking off all of our holidays just so everybody can see like ahead of time when we're going to be off. And I got to Thanksgiving, and I blocked off Thursday and Friday for our days off, and I was thinking about the Egg Bowl, I immediately was like, I need to do a score prediction right now. And so, like, in our CRM, I put the score prediction for the Egg Bowl that I had. I'm going to use the same score prediction because it would be epic if that happened. I honestly don't hate it still. I had Ole Miss winning 38-27, and I'm sticking with that. I think it's going to be close into the fourth quarter, 1000%. If this game is not close, I honestly probably lean it more towards Ole Miss having a disaster game. Maybe a Trinidad injury or Kawan Lacey gets hurt. I can tell you right now, if either of those players get hurt, Ole Miss is going to be in a really rough spot. They carry that offense right now. So I think that Mississippi State's going to come out firing on all cylinders. If they can get the run game going with Davin Booth and Fluff Bothwell, Ole Miss is going to have a tough time stopping those shot plays with Brennan Thompson and Anthony Edwards. There's no telling what State's going to do on offense. Jeff Levy knows Ole Miss and that program like the back of his hand. He could have some stuff drawn up that nobody else has played against us all season. So I know Lane Kiffin's going to prepare for this game, whether he plans on staying or leaving, because this does impact how other programs view him and what he brings to the table. You've got to beat your rivals. If he finishes with a 3-1 or 4-1 total record against his rival, I mean, if I'm another program, that's huge for me. So being able to get this win, whether he stays or leaves Ole Miss, is still really important. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, but yeah, our podcast has led up to this game. It's cool that we're finally getting to pick this game and preparing to go on Friday. I'm pumped.
It's gonna be real fun. So Mississippi teams always find a way to choke in football. It's just something that just always seems to happen. I mean, Ole Miss last year was a really good team and somehow went 9-3. I mean, they should have been much better than that. I think State pulls it off and drags Ole Miss down. Mississippi teams love to drag each other down just in the mud. And I think they find a way here. I think Blake Shapen ends up on the bench at some point. And Kamario Taylor comes in, plays a great game. The crowd gets behind him. And I think we find a way. 31-28.
This reminds me of the Egg Bowl where we knocked State out of the playoff.
Yeah.
They still had a chance, even with the loss against Alabama, to make the playoffs. Even though it was not a pretty
We
loss,
were number 4.
y'all had a chance.
Yeah.
We were like number 18 or something. And was that game in Oxford?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the Jalen Walton game where he had the 91-yard reverse toss dive touchdown. Like he got the toss and he like reverse field. Oh, incredible
Uh,
play. Egg Bowl history play. It was awesome. I'll never forget watching that game live. We were at one of my relatives' land and we were staying out in the camper. All my relatives are out for Thanksgiving and we're all sitting around in the camper watching the game and we all started screaming. It was awesome. But I feel like that this game profiles very similarly to that one, except the script is flipped in 10 and a half or 10, 12 years since then almost. Um, we see Ole Miss now with a chance to make the playoffs for the first time and be the first Mississippi school to actually do something in the postseason. I feel like they could totally choke this game. I've been saying it all season.
I mean, it would just be the Mississippi thing for the other one to just drag them down and keep them
Yeah,
from
and
doing it.
I
Like,
would never wish Ole Miss to lose this game, obviously, and I would never pick Ole Miss to lose this game unless I had a really, really good reason. With how we're playing right now, I don't feel like we're in any sort of slump. I don't feel like we're gonna let the drama get to us, and I'm praying that we can find some success here and just make it to the
I mean,
playoffs and beat the
there
state.
has been no game since the drama turned up, so like you don't really know.
I mean, the Florida game had a lot of drama, but it's gotten
Well,
heated since
some, and
then.
that was close too against a Florida team that's pretty terrible. But
Yeah, and
they
like we
also play
talked
close
about,
against Georgia though,
they
so
had
like how
those
much can
weird
you read into
games,
it?
but
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to agree. This is the most egg bowl of all time. Like this is such a big game. I was talking to my dad the other day. Despite the fact that State's 5-6, I think this is currently to date the biggest game in Ole Miss history. If you take any one specific game, this is the biggest game in Ole Miss history. Last week was the most important home game Ole Miss has played, beating Florida and taking care of business when your coach is rumored to be possibly hired by the team coming in trying to knock you off. That was a big win. We just needed to get over the hump there and not fall into a slump. But there is no slump with rivalry games. You lose a rivalry game, you just lose to your rival. It's not it's just you caught them slacking game. It was a slump. You lost to your rival. You don't not get up for the rivalry game, especially the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss loses this game, they outright lose this game. There's no excuses. And that's what you gotta love about rivalries, and especially the Egg Bowl. There is so much history behind this game. Even with the transfer classes not really being around for previous matchups, there's still just so much tradition in this game and so much history. I think it's going to be an extremely well fought out game, and I think Ole Miss breaks away late. Maybe pads the stats a little bit to cover, but I definitely see a one score game in the cards, possibly even leaning State's favor.
I probably agree with your outcome if Blake Shapen ends up playing the whole game, which I really hope doesn't happen. I could definitely see him throwing like a game sealing interception late, but I have a feeling something's going to happen with that, and maybe that provides a spark for State.
Yeah,
Because I know the fan base in that stadium would really get hype if Kamari Taylor gets in there.
yeah, we talked about Blake Shapen. Ole Miss has historically kind of had a tough time with quarterbacks that have been in slumps. Like we'll play teams that we think like we're supposed to box up their quarterback, get the turnovers that he's been given to every team he's played, and then we make him look like a Heisman contender. Every Ole Miss fan knows exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter what season with what defense, we've done it. You talk about DJ Lagway last season. I mean, heck, Brock Vandergrift did it to us. That guy stunk. He literally quit football. He came into Oxford with a 3-9 Kentucky team and looked like he could go to the NFL draft. It was terrible. And we had one of the best defenses we've ever had. And you can go back and back and back in Ole Miss football lore and you can find games like that. But this screams a game to me for redemption for Blake Shapen. I think you probably will see Kamario Taylor, whether it's on a goal line package or Blake Shapen has to come out for a couple plays. I don't know that Blake Shapen gets benched in this game, and it's still competitive. If he gets benched, it's no longer a game, in my opinion, or he's hurt. That's the only way he's coming out of this game. He gives State the best chance to win. They have to be able to throw the football to win. As far as interceptions are concerned, Ole Miss is very lacking in the turnover department. They're more likely to get a timely fumble than ever sniff an interception. I don't see Blake Shapen finding too many defenders from Ole Miss in this game. If they do, it's probably not a good look for State overall with the outcome. So I think it's going to be really close. I'm pumped about this one. Like we talked about at this point, this will be the first Egg Bowl that one of us will have attended and our team has won.
Yeah,
So
we're both 0-2, right?
somebody's coming out on the
Yeah.
winner's side. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm really hoping that Ole Miss doesn't choke the bag here. But like we said, Ole Miss and Mississippi State are notorious for selling when it matters the most. Mississippi teams coming in clutch is not a common narrative. So,
Southern baseball with their natties back to back.
yep, except for baseball. We do have baseball. Southern
Can
Miss,
never take
Mississippi
that
State,
from
Ole
us.
Miss, the
Well, actually, Southern
trifecta.
Miss is notorious for choking in the playoffs in baseball.
They're good. They may not be winning big in really big games when it matters, but they're good. So we'll give them some credit there. So that's going to do it for the Egg Bowl recap. Okay, so we've got a massive slate of Week 14 game picks and previews to do. So here's how we're going to do this. We've been breaking these down. We took our biggest games and we did a little bit longer breakdowns on those. We're going to do, gosh, I don't even have a number on how many games we're about to
It's
do.
like either 16 or 18, I think.
It's a lot. So buckle up. We've got a lot of rivalry games we're going to go over real quick. So we're going to start with Navy at Memphis. This has AAC title implications, and unfortunately, it's not for Memphis, it's for Navy. Navy wins this game, there's a real chance they make it into their conference championship, and they either play North Texas or Tulane. I think they would probably play North
I
Texas.
think Tulane actually has the tiebreaker somehow.
Well, let's say they play Tulane. I think that if Navy's able to pull that game off, they actually have a chance to make the playoff.
They do.
So
Crazy.
I don't love the world where that's going to happen, but this game matters a lot. And with Eli Heidenreich and Blake Horvath at the helm, Navy's offense is very explosive. We saw what they did to USF just a week or two ago. I think they absolutely can do it to Memphis. I've got Navy winning this game 34 to 23. I think they get the ball rolling with Blake Horvath in this game.
This just feels like a game to me where Memphis is going to get up and win it. They had a game similar to this last year. They were kind of out of the running for the AAC title, and they were playing against Tulane, who had everything to lose in that game, and they smoked them, if I remember right, on Thanksgiving also. So I actually like Memphis to win this one over Navy at home, knock them out 35 to 31.
All right, next we've got Nebraska taking on Iowa in what is shaping up to be the most Nebraska versus Iowa game ever. I think there's a chance for snow. Not positive on that. I know the next day there's a very high chance of snow, but regardless, I see a slugfest ensuing here. I've got Iowa winning 17 to 13, and here we are in week 14, setting up another Nebraska 7-5 season.
Yep, another mid Nebraska season. I also have Iowa winning. Iowa has won 8 out of the last 9 of this game. I don't see that trend starting to change yet. 16-13,
Yeah,
Hawkeyes.
in a slug out, I definitely feel like Iowa is going to be in a better position than Nebraska right now. The only way Nebraska has a chance is if they get their run game going. All right, next we've got Georgia Tech in Atlanta taking on Georgia in what is basically a home game for Georgia Tech. Coming off of a tough loss to Pitt, though, I don't like the Yellow Jackets in this matchup. Georgia has just gotten hotter and hotter as the season's gone along. Gunnar Stockton is playing incredible football. They're running the ball at will. Georgia Tech has no defense. I'm going to take Georgia winning 41-24 in what will most likely end up being a blowout.
Georgia Tech's defense is really bad, unfortunately. And Georgia is a lot better than the team last year that went into 5 overtimes. Georgia Tech. It also doesn't help that this game is in the Falcon Stadium for some reason. So that gives Georgia a lot more fan support and a lot different of an atmosphere than it would have been at Bobby Dodd. So I like Georgia to dominate this game 45-24.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this game in the offseason and building up. I thought Georgia Tech was going to be more competitive, but down the stretch they've really taken the foot off the gas. So I think Georgia runs away with that one. Next thing we had up was Arizona State taking on Arizona. This game is shaped up to be really interesting. I did not expect these teams to both be at a crossroads of 8-3, playing for a 9-win season, especially Arizona. I figured Arizona was going to have a really tough out just to get to bowl eligibility this year, but Noah Fafita having another really good season, sticking with his program. I'm really excited that he's stayed with Arizona all the way through, thick and thin, and I'd love for him to finish his career with a big win. Arizona State really tough ending to the season with injuries and Sam Levin announcing that he's probably not going to come back. So they drop a couple games, get blown out by Utah with Jeff Sims at the helm. I think Arizona might take a win here. I'm going to pick them 38 to 35 with a Noah Fafita masterclass to end his final game with Arizona in the regular season.
I'm also going to take Arizona here. I feel like it's going to come down to the quarterbacks, and Arizona has a pretty big advantage there. It's at Arizona State, but that doesn't matter. It's a rivalry game. 28-24 Wildcats.
Another future slugfest to ensue. Oklahoma taking on LSU. We talked about this one earlier. I had the final score being 26-9. I picked a really weird score here. I feel like LSU will find some field goals, if not like some weird combination of scoring that keeps them relatively low. And I don't think Oklahoma moves the ball too well against LSU's defense, but they'd find maybe a defensive score, a special teams play, a couple field goals and some John Mateer magic on maybe a play or two. And I think they win by double digits here.
This game might set football back 150 years. I think it's going to be absolutely disgusting. I actually do not. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to predict LSU to get shut out. I'm going to do it. I'm taking the Sooners 16 to nothing
That's
in this game.
disgusting, man. If
Um,
you had
I'm,
told me in the offseason that these two teams would be some of the worst offenses and the best defenses in the SEC, I would have told you were nuts. But here we are. So definitely expecting a slugfest here. I do see a scenario where Oklahoma could run away with this one. They can get the ball rolling on the ground, but they haven't been too good on that either. So with LSU not being able to run the ball and OU not being able to run the ball, one of these teams might end up with 0 points. Maybe we end up with a 0-0 tie in the fourth quarter into overtime.
There was a game like that that happened. What was it like, waking somebody way back in the day in
I
the
don't even
ACC?
remember,
It
but
was
it
something
was
like that, but it
terrible.
was bad. That could be this could be similar to that for sure.
Sean Mateer's got too much talent to get through a whole game with 0 points, especially against LSU. So that would be crazy if it happened. Next, we got Washington at home taking on Oregon. This is a huge game, believe it or not, for Oregon. Washington has not really done well in big games this season, but at home, they've notoriously been hard to beat. They've had Oregon's number the past couple seasons when they had Kalen DeBoer, but I think Oregon's kind of reclaimed that title over Washington as the superior team now. I think they get this win 34-23. Dante Moore's playing great. They get Kenyon Sadiq back. He's playing good football. As they start to get more of these offensive weapons back, I expect them to keep playing better and better. So I'm taking them by double digits in this one.
If Washington had not lost to Wisconsin, I would be picking them this game. That was just such a red flag. Like that's a bad football team. You can't be losing to that team and expecting to be winning a game like this. I know it's at home and they've been really good at home, but that doesn't matter. I think Oregon's just flat out too much better than them. I do expect it to be competitive though, and I have the final being 31-27.
Yeah, that's always a relatively interesting game. As long as Damon Williams is healthy, Washington will put up a decent fight. And what's funny about the Wisconsin game is I thought Wisconsin was beating Washington was the only outlier they had all season. Well, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee had Illinois at like 21 last
And then
week.
Wisconsin beat them by 17.
Yeah, Wisconsin. I didn't even think they could score 17 points against a conference team. So they were able to pull that game off. So Wisconsin's kind of salvaging their season late, proving that Luke Fickell might need to stay around. I think they had already kind of decided on that middle of the season anyway, but he's starting to show why he might still deserve to be the coach there. Next, we've got what's probably one of my favorite games on the slate: Tennessee taking on Vanderbilt in Knoxville. I love the Commodores in this game. I think that Tennessee's defense is going to have a lot of trouble keeping up with Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia is out of his mind right now. I'd love for him to have a masterclass here to solidify himself as a contender for the Heisman and take a trip to New York. So I'm going to take Vanderbilt 35-27. I see a possible shootout in this game. I think the defense might take a backseat in this one.
I also have Vanderbilt winning this one. I think their offense is going to be a little too much. Maybe some key interceptions from Aguilar and the Commodores coming on top 35-34 on the road.
And I'd give my left arm for Vanderbilt to make the college football playoff, and I'm not even a Vanderbilt fan. That would be the greatest thing ever. Next, we've got Louisville taking on Kentucky. We talked about this game in the middle of the season. Louisville was looking kind of fishy even after the Miami win, and Kentucky had played some bad football. Something stunk about this game to me then. With how things have shaped out with Louisville and Kentucky playing some better football, even I know they just got blown out by Vanderbilt. They've got something at quarterback with Cutter Boley. I'm going to take Kentucky to win this game 31-24. And I know 31 is an optimistic score for Kentucky at any point, in any circumstance. I just don't like Louisville right now. Unless they find a way to run the ball, um, I mean, I just don't think they have a chance. I think Kentucky's the better football team, which is crazy to say. But I'm going to take Kentucky to win this one.
Yeah, Louisville's on a bad slide. Injuries kind of starting to pile up a little bit. Maybe Jeff Brom's in some coaching searches or talking to people we don't know about. Maybe that's contributed to this fall off. Kentucky's played better football despite the blowout loss, like you said, to Vanderbilt. I think they win this game 24-21
Yeah, that would be crazy.
and
Kentucky
get
would
to
get the
bowl
bowl
eligibility.
eligibility.
Yeah, they'd be 6-6.
That's huge. I did not see Kentucky getting to 6 wins this season. If they pull that off, that would be crazy. So, Bob Stoops, I mean, he's hanging around.
Mark Stoops.
I think that's probably like the third time that I've said that. It may not have been on this podcast that I've done that, but I've gotten that mixed up so many times. But Mark Stoops is hanging around. I think a lot of people expected this to be the last season that he was in Lexington, but he's just hanging around. Next game we've got Pitt taking on Miami. You've been calling your shot on this one, Landon. You have Pittsburgh Panthers taking a W in this matchup, I think.
I do. It's going to be a nasty weather game. It's going to be below freezing. Miami has only played in I think the coldest game they played this year is like in the 60s. You're a team that is heavily reliant on throwing the ball. I think that's going to be a struggle here. And I think Pittsburgh wins 24-20.
Yeah, I think the
Ruins
weather
Miami's
plays a
season.
factor. Absolutely. This would tank Miami's season. Pittsburgh elevating themselves as a candidate to be in the playoff if they can pull this game off. They would probably make the conference championship game if they win and have maybe one thing go their way with a loss from somebody else. I don't think they make it as an at-large three-loss team. That doesn't make sense. So they would need a win here and somebody else to lose and then win the conference championship. But I'm taking Miami. I'm going to take them 28-21. I think Mason Heischel is going to play a good game. I think Carson Beck's just going to be a little bit better. Pittsburgh's defense is iffy for me. If they can come away with some key interceptions against Carson Beck, who is due, he's always due for bad
He's
games.
always due to throw 3 picks in a game.
And let's just say we see some freezing rain, we see some snow in Pittsburgh. Just go ahead and count on it. Chalk it up. Carson Beck disaster class.
Mario Cristobal is this class.
Yeah, it would come down to the final game of the season with this team. It was supposed
It
to
did
be
last year.
an easy playoff berth for
Syracuse.
Miami, given that Clemson and Florida State both were down this year. If they find a way to miss the playoffs this year, it'll be really, really funny. Not funny for Mario Cristobal and company. I'm still going to take Miami, though. Should be a really close game. This game was one that I truly anticipated being a huge game when we got into rivalry week. South Carolina taking on Clemson. I just can't believe where we're at with this game. I even thought that with where Clemson was at, that they were probably just a little bit better than South Carolina, but South Carolina's been playing better down the stretch. Both these teams are capable of playing good in spurts, but I'm liking the sellers to sellers connection right now at South Carolina. I wasn't even aware that Norris had a brother that played wide receiver until he started going off. He had a big game last week against Coastal. They're starting to play better. If they can string together maybe one half like they did against A&M, that's enough to beat Clemson. Clemson does not have the character as a football team to do what Texas A&M did, or even close to it. All South Carolina has to do is find one half of football, and I think they beat Clemson. I'm taking them 31-28.
Lenora Sellers' hero ball was enough last year for South Carolina to have a good season. This year it hasn't been, but in this game, I think it will be enough. I'm taking the Gamecocks 24-20.
Yeah, that should be an interesting one. I think that'll be a sneaky one on this slate, at least as far as watchability is concerned. I think it'll be fun. TCU takes on Cincinnati. I'm not entirely confident on this pick, but I'm going to take Cincinnati to finish out the season with a solid win over TCU, 27-20. Brendan Sorsby needs to finish out his career with a bang. He's played too good this season to finish with multiple losses in a row. TCU's been disappointing. Josh Hoover's been throwing picks, just raining every game. I think that continues here, and I think Cincinnati gets some key interceptions in this one.
I think the Cincinnati slide unfortunately continues. Last year they ended off the year with 5 losses in a row. This would be their fourth in a row, and unfortunately for them, think it happens. They're going on the road to TCU. TCU would be get to 8-4 with the win. What'd they go last year? I think they went 8-4 also.
Sure. I know that they didn't have their best season last year. It was
Maybe it was 7-5 or something.
slightly disappointing. But
But I'm going to take the Horned Frogs here, 31-28.
yeah, and if Eric McAllister gets going and Josh Hoover connects with him on a couple deep throws, Cincinnati's going to have a tough time keeping up. TCU's defense isn't terrible. So I think these teams are pretty even for the most part. It's just going to come down to the quarterbacks. I love Brendan Sorsby. I was all over Josh Hoover being the best quarterback in the Big 12 at the beginning of the season. I don't know that the team around him has been as good as we thought it would be, but he's had trouble keeping the ball safe. But whoever can play the best as far as the quarterback position is concerned for me, I think takes home the W here. I'm going to roll with Cincinnati. Next, we've got a huge game in the MAC. Central Michigan taking on Toledo. I'm going to take Toledo here. 26-19 in a really strange game to secure what might be a chance to compete in their conference championship game.
I'm also going to take Toledo. Both these teams are 7-4, but Central Michigan's schedule has been absolute dog water in the MAC. They play like all the bottom teams. Toledo's actually favored by like 10 points in this one. I don't think it'll be quite that bad with it being on the road and such a big game for Central Michigan, but I'm going to take the Rockets 27-20.
Yeah, Central Michigan's got a really strange offense rolling right now. They're predominantly run heavy, and they've got kind of this weird three quarterback system of different guys they rotate in and out for different packages. I actually bet against them and bet Kent State last week. I actually thought they had a chance at one point to make that game a one score game late. And sure enough, there's a reason why you don't bet money on Kent State to win football games, especially as an outright underdog. So Central Michigan's got an interesting offensive strategy. Defense has been good. So should be an interesting game. I'm surprised they're getting 10.5 in that one. This is shaped up to be one of the most interesting games on the slate as far as the group of five is concerned. Western Kentucky goes to Jacksonville State. I love Cam Cook. He's definitely one of the more unsung players in college football. I think he ended up making the semifinalist list or even the finalist list for the Doak Walker Award. He's one of the leading rushers, if not the leading rusher in the country right now, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to roll with him and Jayville State in this one 35 to 28 to take down Western Kentucky, who just came off of a extremely competitive game against LSU in what was our optical assault game of the week.
So last year, I think it was the last week of the year, these two teams played, and then they played again in the conference championship. Both games were blowouts, with each team winning one of those. Jacksonville State hosting this one. I think there's actually a path for them to play again next week, even with either team winning this one. But I'm going to take Jacksonville State this time around, 38 to 28.
I think that one's going to be really interesting. Maverick McIver not being healthy, that stinks. I was rooting for him this season. He's been a really cool story, but they've been fine with the backup at that position. I know LSU and their defense really shut them down, but they had their chances. What's funny is that it actually came down to their backup quarterback catching a touchdown in that game, and they probably would have won. But he didn't come down with the Philly special. So next game we have is Troy at Southern Miss. Southern Miss has been on a slide. Unfortunately, they had injuries at several positions, mainly at quarterback to Braylon Braxton. He's come back since. Had a really good game against South Alabama last week, but it wasn't enough to get the win there. They end up losing to South Alabama.
I think they got behind 28 to nothing or something. It was bad.
Yeah, he ended up having a pretty good game there late in the second half, throwing for a ton of yards. He's one of the leading passers in the country, which is insane. Southern Miss has played significantly better than the team they had last year, so they're already far and above exceeding expectations of the 1-11 team from last year. So, regardless of whether win or loss here, they've done a tremendous job this year with the new coaching staff. I'm actually going to take them to win this game, 31 to 24 at home. I like Southern Miss to win.
Yeah, Southern Miss just a couple weeks ago was really hot at 7-2. Getting talked about a little bit, but the two tough losses back to back with the injuries, like you were talking about. Troy though has been under the radar all season. They put together a solid year at 7-4 right now after losing John Summerall a couple years back. But Southern Miss getting this one at home, I think they found enough here and win this one 35 to 31 to get to the Sun Belt Championship against James Madison.
Yeah, I like Southern Miss's playmakers. They've got Micah Davis, ex Ole Miss transfer, and they've also got Elijah Metcalf. Both those guys can take the top off the
They got Matt
defense.
Jones too.
Matt Jones, ex Ole Miss running back from our very own Jackson Prep here over in Flowood, Mississippi, right across the street from my office. So really cool to see the kind of talent that Southern Miss has been able to funnel in from the state of Mississippi and put on full display. I think this football team is honestly I think they could give James Madison a run for their money. They're solid. On a good day, they're pretty solid. I think James Madison's a little overinflated, so I'd like to see Southern Miss get a win here and maybe get a huge upset and take out James Madison from the playoff conversation. That would be pretty cool. So, I think we both got Southern Miss winning in this one. Next game, we've got Florida State taking on Florida in, unfortunately, another toilet bowl game between these two teams. I think it's crazy that we're back here again looking at this game, and neither Florida State or Florida is currently in a winning percentage of over 500.
When's the last time these two teams played and both were like above 500?
I think that it's been at least 3 or 4 years, maybe five. It's been a while. Maybe if you go back to the Kyle Trask era, I think Florida State was probably not even that great that year.
I'm pretty sure they were trash then.
Oh, it's been unfortunate for these teams as of late. Not looking like another great matchup here. I'm gonna take Florida State solely on the basis of offensive production. I think that Tommy Castellanos and Deuce. I keep getting this guy's name wrong. What's the guy's name?
I know it's Deuce, but I can't remember his last name.
Gosh, dude, we're gonna have to cut it, and I'll have to get it right. Was it
Is it
Deuce
Robinson?
Bryant? Yeah, it's Deuce
Yeah, it's
Robinson.
Deuce Robinson.
Ole
Okay.
Miss has Deuce Alexander, and I always get it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think Florida State, I'm going to take them solely on the basis of offensive production. Tommy Castellanos and Deuce Robinson are far and above better than anybody Florida's got on offense. I know Jaden Ball and DJ Lagway have their games, but it's not going to be enough to score enough points to beat Florida State. I know that Florida's got this in Gainesville, but they just proved last week that even in a rivalry game, it does not matter. So I'm going to take FSU in a close one, 24-21, in what most likely will end up being a toilet bowl game.
I'm actually going to take Florida here. They're hosting this game. I think there's a little bit more talent on the field. I do expect them to show up for this one since it's such an important game. I just don't trust anything that's going on at Florida State right now with Norvell. I mean, you get a great win in week one against Bama and then just do nothing with it. 4-6 since that. There's just no reason to trust them. I like the Gators in this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game. I think that's not because any one team is going to show up with a lot more effort than the other. I think it's going to be a lack of effort from both teams making this a slugfest. So we'll see who comes on top
I
there.
didn't say my score 24-21 Gators.
I got a 24-21 FSU, so we'll see how we roll
Oh,
on that one. Next game we got a rematch, and it's not even conference championship week yet. Oregon State goes to Wazoo after getting a huge upset win against the Cougars just a couple weeks ago. I don't see that happening again.
this is a conference championship for the Pac-12.
I guess you could look at it that way. I mean, if they were to win this game and be 2-0, they'd be the 2-0 Pac-12 champions.
And I guess
So
if Washington State wins to be 1-1, you'd go by point differential. So if they win by more than three, Pac-12 champs.
I have Wazoo winning this game 38-17. So I fully anticipate them dominating in this one.
Oregon State's so bad. They're just so terrible. I know they beat Washington State before, but that was just a fluke game. This one's at Washington State. They're not going to let that happen again. I just can't see that. And I mean, Washington State's a few close games away from being like 8-3 right now. So I think they win this one 28-10. Their defense has been playing really good. I think they shut down Oregon State.
Yeah, I think Anthony Henderson would have to run for about 7,000 yards in this game if they wanted to win. So unfortunately for Oregon State, there's not much else there on offense. This one's shaping up to be really interesting. Virginia Tech is taking on Virginia, and Virginia needs to win this game to make the conference championship game. They lose, they're out. They're missing the playoffs in what's been a massive overachievement of a season. And Virginia Tech, unfortunately, very much underachieving this year, firing Brent Pry, just now hiring James Franklin, which we haven't talked about yet. Big hire for them, but that unfortunately does not impact the game for them. So, being a rivalry game, I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than it probably should be. Kyron Drone's probably playing his last game in Virginia Tech uniform. I think that they bring everything to the table that they've got and make it competitive. With that being said, I'm going to take Chandler Morris in Virginia 37-28 in a close one.
Virginia Tech has won 23 out of the last 25 in this matchup, which is just crazy. But I do think this will be an outlier year. I do think Virginia narrowly wins this one. I think it's going to be really close just because of how this series has been. But I think Virginia's just too much better than Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has been just putrid in most of these games. Their offense has been so bad. Kyron Jones can't throw the ball 15 yards hardly. So I like Virginia to win this one 28-24.
Yeah, I like Chandler Morris, and unfortunately, Kyron Drones is barely even a quarterback. So I think that that's a massive advantage in favor of Virginia, especially with it being at home. Virginia Tech could show up with everything to play a really competitive game against Virginia here. Just given the fact that this team, they do have nothing to lose. It is a huge rivalry game. It's the same thing we've been talking about all day with these rivalry game matchups. But I just think that Virginia has so much to play for right now. This is the biggest season probably in their program's history. They would just need to get away with a win here against a pretty sorry Virginia Tech team coming off of another blowout loss. So I expect them to take a win there. The last game we're going to cover is a really interesting one. Neither of these teams have really much to play for here other than pride. Bill Belichick needs a win. UNC is taking on NC State. At NC State, I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done. This would be, I wouldn't call it a signature win for Bill Belichick, but winning against your rival, that can salvage just about any season. This is usually a pretty heated rivalry game, despite what the records are. Um, I've watched this game several times. Lots of fights break out. It's always intense. Um, I'm going to take the Wolfpack here on the basis of CJ Bailey being the best athlete on the field, followed by Hollywood Smothers. I think that they take a 31-23 win here. Bill Belichick coaches a good game. It's just not going to be enough.
I think NC State has too much on offense for UNC, and UNC's offense has been so just vanilla and just garbage this year. So I like the Wolfpack 31-17.
Yeah, and Gio Lopez has played better football down the stretch, so I won't take everything away from UNC here. They're playing better,
They
but
are.
I just think that it's too little, too late. If they were massively improved at this point, I could see them beating NC State. They're a beatable football team, but it's just not been enough improvement for me to be confident picking them in this game. So that's going to wrap up our week 14 game previews and picks. That's got to be a record for the most that we've predicted in one singular week. I think this is probably also a record for our longest podcast. So shout out to anybody who finishes all hour and 40 minutes of this pod. Let us know down in the comments if you listen all the way through. We'll give you a shout.